I don't have anything clever to introduce this video with, so I'm just going to say that Suspiria is real cool. Suspiria is a 1977 supernatural horror film from acclaimed Italian filmmaker Dario Argento, a legendary director with a plethora of work in the horror genre, especially the giallo subgenre, where he's probably one of the most important figures in that movement. A movement which basically formed the foundation that a lot of American slasher films built upon. So you know I'm a fanboy. Dude's basically one of the granddaddies of one of my favourite things to talk about. Though probably most famous for his giallo work, with films like The Bird with Crystal Plumage and Deep Red, many consider Suspiria to be his finest film. And that's because it probably is. It's an absolute banger. I will say, I haven't seen every film he's ever made. They are all on my list, there's just a lot of them. Dude's prolific and still going. But I will say that I do have a hard time believing that Suspiria can be beaten. Because it's the kind of film where if you watch and find yourself able to appreciate what it's doing, your immediate thought is going to be, oh shit, this is a straight up masterpiece. Suspiria is legit considered one of the greatest and most influential horror films of all time. It's taught in universities and colleges. It's cited as an influence by probably a lot of your favourite directors. There's obviously a high profile Amazon remake, and there's at least 3 metal bands all named after it, so it has left quite the legacy. And it's real easy to say why. Suspiria follows Susie, an American ballet student who moves to a prestigious school in Germany in order to perfect her craft. On the night of her arrival, during a really horrendous and oh so gorgeously shot bout of rain, she is unable to gain access to the school, but witnesses another student, Pat, fleeing the academy. We then briefly follow Pat, who stays with a friend, convinced something a bit dodgy is going down at the school, hence her frantic escape. That night, Pat is killed by a mysterious stranger in a very brutal manner, and in the encounter, Pat's friend is also killed when she is impaled by the shards of the skylight that Pat was thrown through. Susie returns to the school the next day and finds everyone in a flurry with the news of Pat's death. And as the film progresses, more and more people connected to the school begin to show up dead. And as other strange circumstances start to occur, such as a rain of maggots, strange illnesses, and animal attacks, Susie and her new friend at the school, Sarah, begin to uncover a strange supernatural conspiracy that could be behind it all. But that's the plot. And honestly, that is the least important part of this whole production. It kinda barely matters, to be frank with you, because Suspiria isn't really about its plot. Suspiria is about the experience of watching Suspiria. It's a total vibes movie. Dario Argento was never a guy to be focused on clean, crisp, polished dialogue and twisty narratives that keep you immersed in what happens next. He was always a director who really played into the strengths of film as a visual format. And there's no better representation of this than Suspiria. A lot of movies can be described as beautiful, but almost none out there are Suspiria beautiful. Pushing any semblance of realism to the side, Argento, his cinematographer Luciano Tovoli, and their teams craft a film that is absolutely dripping with style and colour. Every frame of this thing pulsates with a bright, unique energy that many films since have tried to match, but almost none have even come close. The film presents the world it is set in almost as if that world were an art piece in of itself, an almost seemingly impossible reality that is intricate in every way. An apartment building becomes an almost MC Escher-style labyrinthine layout of staircases and tiles bathed in deep reds and stark black and whites that contrast symmetrical framing with asymmetrical patterns. Characters occupy these spaces as if they just up and walked into a painting, their physical presence within these sets seeming like a human being was sucked into the art adorned on the walls of a rich museum. The Dance Academy itself is this almost incomprehensible space. A completely deep red exterior homes this huge open lobby with twisting snake-like banisters along the stairs. Hidden rooms are decorated with the painted patterns of tangled flowers and incomprehensible architecture. A stunning Art Nouveau pool sits inside of it, one that was actually shot shot at Munich's Malicious Volksbad, a public swimming pool built in 1901 to resemble an ancient Roman bath, with its grand scale and Baroque elements, and all of the school's intertwining halls and rooms follow their own rules of lighting, covering the building in blood-like reds, deep sea blues and profound pinks with flashes of yellow and greens for good measure. It is vividly stunning and a look many synths have tried to emulate. You just need to look at the pinky blue neons of 80s horror movies to see how many were influenced by this aesthetic. Hell, if you watch anything I made, you can see this use of colour being attempted, like in the Vampire's Lair of my film The August Club, or just this video right now. But no one, and that definitely includes me, has been able to pull off such a style with as much vivid beauty as Argento's masterpiece. There are not many horror films you could point to and say that you would actively like to live in that world, but I would love to take a walk through the stunning unreality of an Argento movie. Just, I'd like to not be killed if I did so. Suspiria as a visual experience is almost ethereal. It is a hauntingly gorgeous film. Even its gore, while particularly gruesome and brutal in places, is downright pretty. Suspiria is the beauty of a dream wrapped in the essence of a nightmare. Despite its stunning visuals, the film never puts you in a position where things feel comfortable and at ease. The beauty is always contrasted by the horror below the surface. There's always something not quite right, always an underlying tension, terror and mystery to the whole thing. Factors that often culminate in acts of violence that would arguably delve into the realm of excessive even now, but in 1977 must have been truly shocking to a wider global audience. Not so much to the Italians, mind you. They love that shit already, because unlike us uncultured Philistines elsewhere, they had good taste. From the moment the film starts to when the credits roll, Argento takes us through a kaleidoscope of colour and horror crafted with an absolute precision. One that's accompanied by another of the film's greatest achievements, its unbelievable score. Created by Argento and prog rock band Goblin, this movie's soundtrack is as hauntingly beautiful as the film it is based on, and it is such an iconic part of the movie that I cannot imagine a version of this where anything else could possibly be in its place. Goblin absolutely understood the assignment and what this film was trying to do in its presentation, crafting with Argento the most perfect pairing of sound and visual there could ever be. Remember before when I said Suspiria is the beauty of a dream wrapped in the essence of a nightmare? Well, the main recurring musical theme accentuates that idea massively by essentially magnifying that notion, with a track that begins with a chiming melody so pretty it evokes a feeling of the nostalgia of a childhood Christmas, only to then juxtapose that same beautiful melody with a truly horrible touch, overlaying it with a kind of repeated whisper of some demonic creature that seems to ramp up in volume and intensity in a manner making the once pretty glittery chiming melody take on this whole new life as something that feels otherworldly and evil. Between the visuals and the sound, the whole film takes the viewer through a kind of elegant carnival of colour and creepiness. Amongst the appealing imagery, there still manages to be these unpleasant visual assaults. A scene where Sarah walks past Eyes in the Dark, for example, still manages to send a shiver up the spine. The violence, though stylised, still hits hard, and an agonising crawl through razor wire that climaxes in a slit throat is a sight to behold. And this is why the plot kinda just doesn't really matter. And I'm not saying it's bad or that the performances are off or even that there's nothing thematically interesting here when I say this. It's got enough mystery to keep you involved. The performances, while very different at the standards you might be used to in American movies and strangely overdubbed, a common practice with Italian movies of the time, are good. And there's definite themes here that discuss ideas around the occult, skepticism, and structures of power and how we should perhaps question the narratives of everything is fine, but they're just not the focus. Suspiria as a film is almost impossible to spoil, because to do so would be like attempting to spoil a roller coaster. I can tell you what it feels like to ride one, but you'll never understand the sensation until you've tried it yourself. And if you watch it and you're unfamiliar or underexposed to other countries' approaches to cinema at the time that you do, then you might be quick to write it off as weird, what with its unusual overdubbing where some people seem to have dialogue that matches their lip movement and others being way off, and the occasionally odd sudden cuts and the oddly stilted and robotic dialogue choices. But it's not weird, it's just different. It might not be the kind of narrative first focused storytelling that you're used to, but the film is such a unique achievement in this art form that if you can get on its wavelength and just let it wash over you, you'll be in for an unmatchable experience. Even the movie's strange overdubbing, which feels particularly odd due to the different nationalities of the cast all performing in their native languages, only adds to its bizarre and dreamlike quality. It's a film that has been a huge inspiration to so many people, including trans horror filmmaker Daisy Mathis, who I met on the film festival circuit when August Club was touring, Suspiria being her favourite film of all time, and the reason she got into making horror movies. And on that note, I'd just like to finish this video with some highlights from my conversation with her about why it's such a special piece of art. Hey Daisy, welcome to the channel.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So Daisy, I met at a film festival. You were showing your film Burn the Bitch, that's correct, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which was very Argento enthused, very inspired by Giallo. Suspiria is, correct as if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure you've said it's your favorite film of all time, right? Why Suspiria especially?
There's never really going to be another film like Suspiria ever. And Suspiria again is it's one of those films that really changed everything for me. Just seeing it differently as an artist, especially just the way the film plays with like visual language and music and color and all those things.
What do you think appeals to you specifically about this genre, about the films of Argento and about Suspiria? Like why, how do the colors add to the aspects of the film, and why do these things work, if that makes sense?
Well, I realized how important the colors were when I was shooting Burn the Bitch, because we were constantly having color in every single scene, setting up. Usually it was 2-color setup. We had colored gels and lights, and there was a point where the cinematographer asked me, he was like, okay, so where's this light coming from? And I'm like, it's just in the room. It's just what the world looks like in this film. And he was like, yeah, but is it coming from? I was like, no, the world looks like this. Like the world just has all of these colors, and that's just natural lighting. And that's kind of how Suspiria works. There is that light's not coming from anywhere. That color's not coming from anywhere. It's adding to that otherworldly feel. Like Suspiria is meant to feel like a nightmare. You're meant to feel panicked. It's so. I feel like there's something like really risky and brave about just shooting something so like violent in bright colors. There's also that aspect of like, I know when I showed my friend this film recently, she was just like, so do the colors mean like certain behaviors or certain moods or something like that? So I feel like it also warrants a lot of like deep diving, and it's just shot and planned so beautifully with the music as well. I don't think we get a lot of artistic integrity in cinema anymore to be able to do something like that, because a lot of horror is quite copy and pasted. It's quite, there is a formula. I think there was a particular time in Italy where we got to do that, they got to do that kind of thing where they could just be really kind of like artistic and visual and try things outside the norms.
Is there anything you're working on at the moment you want to talk about?
So Burn the Bitch is still out in festivals out in the world and doing its own thing at the moment, so I'm kind of leaving that to it. I'm writing my first feature at the moment,
Amazing.
which is kind of like, it's basically set in late 80s London, and it's essentially the Warriors, but instead of gangs, it's subcultures. So like goths, new romantics, punks, neo-Nazis and stuff like that. Yeah, if anyone wants to reach me, I am Fix Your Hearts or Die on Instagram. I also run Chroma Crystal, which is a horror merch brand. So I'm usually at like conventions, like horror conventions.
That was Daisy Mathis, everybody. Please go check her out, follow her. She's a great filmmaker, she's very passionate about horror, and she's just an all-around a talent to look out for. So please check her out. Thank you so much, Daisy, for joining me for today's video. And I just want to say, as Daisy is an upcoming trans filmmaker, I just want to shine a little bit more of a spotlight on her. So unlike some of our interviews with other more commercial writers and directors, our conversation will not be a Patreon exclusive, but rather available as an unlisted video at the link in the description below, so that more people can learn about her work, her inspirations, and her outlook on the horror genre. Go check it out. And other than that, that's another episode wrapped for this month. So thanks again for watching, everybody, and once more, don't forget, this month is being done in support of Trans Lifeline, with all ad revenue and Patreon earnings this month being sent their way. And don't forget too, you can help by donating to Trans Lifeline using the donation buttons on this video, or buy my Trans Lifeline charity shirt. Donation link is below, and shirt link is in the description. Also, as always, remember to like, comment, and subscribe to my OnlyDans with the red button, and hit the bell so you do not miss future uploads. And a big huge thanks to all those who have donated so far, as well as all of my patrons, which if you'd like to become one, support the channel, and get some cool exclusives, you can do so at the link in the description below. Oh, and in unrelated to charity efforts, your skeleton pal is actually an advisor on the latest entry in the smash hit horror documentary franchise In Search of Darkness. Just saying. So if you'd be interested in picking up their newest effort and first foray into the 90s decade, your bony boy here can offer you a special 10% discount code to tell him Dan Drambles sent you. Code and link in the description. And finally, I just want to also ask, if you wouldn't mind, please use your free daily votes to vote for me to be this year's Face of Horror at one of the other links in the description. Lots of links in the description these days. Assuming I'm still in the running at the time of this vid's release, of course. Which I will be, because you have all supported me so much, and you wouldn't let me down. You wouldn't let me down. And that's all! Just those few million little things. There you go. Thanks again, and I'll see you all tomorrow.